Namaste, everyone. I'm just waiting for a minute more so that people can join in, and then I'll start. Namaste. My name is Sahana Singh, and I'd like to welcome you to the Indic chat today. And before I start, I want to thank Indic Book Club and Indic Academy for organizing this chat, and also the media partners, Creative India Magazine and Swarajya Magazine, for allowing me to reach out to a much wider audience. I hope everybody can hear me. Please write some comments to show that you can hear me. Yeah, I hope people can hear me right now. So I'm going to talk for about 25-30 minutes, and at the end of it, I'll take some questions from you. So, I have recently written a book called The Educational Heritage of Ancient India, How an Ecosystem of Learning Was Laid to Waste. So this book is available on Amazon, on Flipkart, and various other online platforms. You can search for the book either by the title of the book, or you can search by my name, Sahana Singh. The book is, it costs about 280 rupees for the print edition in India, and the Kindle version is about 100 rupees. So I think it's quite affordable. People, please write some comments to know so that I know that you can hear me. I hope that my mic is working well. So to tell you about my book takes you to the time when India was the educational capital of the world. It was a time when the whole country was full of universities across its length and breadth. And most of us have only heard about Nalanda or Takshashila at the most, but there were scores of forest universities, the viharas, the temple universities, the agraharas, the mathas. A variety of educational institutes were spread out over the land. And there was a rush to gain an education from the Brahmin and the Buddhist scholars of India in a manner similar to the rush we see today, where the students are flocking to Ivy League universities in the US or to Oxford and Cambridge in the UK. So India was like that in ancient times. So the foreign students came from China, Japan, Korea, Western Asia. Basically, whichever part of the world was civilized at that time wanted to send its students to study in India. You might have heard of the Chinese travelers called Fahia and Zhuangzang, who came to India and left behind their accounts. They studied in various places. They studied in Nalanda mainly, traveled around India, left their accounts. But there were actually many other scholars who came to India, not just Fahia and Zhuangzang that I've mentioned frequently. There were hundreds of them who came, and they made very perilous journeys across seas, across mountains. Some of them nearly lost their lives while coming to India, traveling to India, in order to somehow reach one of the top universities. But even after all their effort, there was no guarantee that they would get admission in any of these top universities. That's how it was. So, in fact, in Nalanda, only 20% of the students who applied would get admission. So about 80% of the students would be turned away. And maybe because of that, in the villages surrounding Nalanda, there were many professors, maybe retired professors or teachers, who would give coaching lessons to help students to get admission in Nalanda. So today, when you see these coaching centers for IIT JEE and for the law exams, the medical exams, it's not a new phenomenon in India. And in the Gurukulas and the temple universities of India, there would be beautiful graduation and convocation ceremonies at the end of education, and they were called Samavartana. So during the Samavartana, the gurus would chant beautiful mantras, reminding the students about what values they need to uphold, what they must remember when they go out into life. So in my book, I've tried to give you a flavor of the period when there was an ecosystem of learning, right from top to bottom. It was as if the whole society wanted to, it knew its responsibility of protecting the scholars, the professors, and the students. So they would contribute funds to the universities. They knew the importance of the students and the professors having food to eat, clothes to wear, and medicines when they fell sick. So they all knew that they need to take away the burden of earning from the students and the professors so that they could focus on learning. So that was the society of the time. And also the education system was very interdisciplinary. It was very holistic. And I also want to mention that the women were also a part of the education system. There were a couple of many, I mean, in Mahabharata, you'll find a mention of ashramas, which were headed by female rishis. But even in other places, you will find a reference to very educated, very knowledgeable women. And there were Brahmavadinis, the women who did not get married, who wanted to devote their whole life to learning. So they were called Brahmavadinis. And it was not frowned upon for women to devote their life to education. In fact, I have a whole chapter in my book about women's education. Another thing is that if you have noticed that we Indians tend to debate a lot, we just argue and argue about the smallest of things, then you will be interested to know from my book that it comes from the debating traditions from ancient times. So there were protocols of debate, there were rules on how you should debate, how do you behave. And one of the interesting things was that a good debater was expected to know his opponent's point of view before he took him on in a debate tournament. So a good debater was to have read all the books written by his opponent, and he should have known how to argue from his opponent's side as if he was the opponent himself. So that was the kind of preparation he went with when he debated with an important scholar. So this gives you an idea about why we have so many schools of thought, so many philosophy schools in India, because there was a spirit of debate, and obviously there are thinking, logical people, and so there can't be just one school of thought. There were many, many schools of thought all coexisting. And before I proceed, I forgot, I wanted to show you the map. I have shown a map with all the universities of ancient India. Of course, they didn't exist at the same time, but so I wanted to give an idea about the universities. So you can see Vallabhi in Gujarat, and then on the other side, in the Bihar, Bengal, and Orissa area, you can see so many universities. In the north, you can see the Sharda Peeth. I hope you can see it. You can see Takshashila, and then in the south, you see so many temple universities. And over here, I want to mention the Kantalur Shala University. So this was called the Nalanda of the South, something that I discovered while doing this book. And Kantalur Shala had an amazing spread of subjects, which was unsurpassed at that time. And they even included subjects like martial arts and the Charvaka School of Philosophy. So, and then there was Thrissur with the Kerala School of Mathematics. And in my book, I have talked about the knowledge transfer from India to other countries, how knowledge went from India to China to West Asia to Europe. I've traced the path of this transfer. So during my research, I was quite surprised to see that there were so many Indian scholars who went and settled in China, who went and taught there. So, for example, the top professors from the universities in India would be invited by the Chinese kings to come and head the educational institutes there, or they would be, tasked with translating all the Sanskrit works into Chinese. And mind you, most of these Indian professors who went to China would get Chinese names when they went there. So today, when you hear of them, you might not know that they went from India. So one such professor was Gautam Siddha. I think he had a different name in Chinese. So he was invited to be the president of the official board of astronomy in China in the 8th century CE. And he was the person who took the Navagraha calendar to China. He took the Indian numerals to China. So you can imagine how Indians have built the knowledge system of China. Then even the invention of the printing press in China was done by the Buddhist scholars who went from China, and subsequently they used the printing press to spread Buddhist doctrine in China. Then in my book, I have made reference to the research of Dr. Raj Vedam from IHAR, who has done a lot of work on the pathways of transfer of knowledge of Ayurveda and the sciences from India to Europe. So he has spoken about the Toledo School of Translators in Spain. And so this Toledo school had a big number of scholars who were busy day and night translating Arabic works into Latin so that they could be disseminated in Europe. And most of these Arabic works were actually the Indian works. So the Indian works of Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, Bhaskaracharya were all translated by the Arabs. And then in the Toledo school, they were en masse translated into Latin. So I have given many data points which I got from Dr. Raj Vedam. Then in my book, I've also referenced Dharampal. Dharampal, who made astounding discoveries about the Indian elementary schooling system, the primary schooling system, which he actually came across a bunch of surveys conducted by the British themselves, in which they are commending the Indian education system, which taught the alphabets, which taught mathematics, which made them proficient in languages and all that. So I've included that. And then also my book looks at the destruction of the traditional education system, how the Muslim invasions impacted the universities, how the British colonial rule completely broke up the traditional education system. So I have traced the whole story there, if you're interested. And now I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I am from Karnataka. I was born in Mysuru. So Kannada is my mother tongue. The Singh surname comes from my Rajput husband. So women get this delightful opportunity to take on their husband's names and reinvent themselves. So that's what I did. In addition, I like to confuse people about which state I come from. So coming back to my book, I had no idea it would become a book. So I was asked by Nitin Sridhar of India Facts to contribute some articles to the web magazine. So I started asking questions for which I wanted to find answers, and then wrote articles based on that. So one of the questions that came to my mind was, how did India go from being the world's education capital to the depths of illiteracy in recent times? So I took up the question, and I accessed a lot of documents, and then finally wrote those articles. Those articles became very popular. They were shared widely. I got hundreds of letters, and I also got this feedback that people wanted me to combine all the parts of the article and make it into a book. So that's how this book came about. And then when I came to publishing the book, I realized that I'm not a known face in literary circles, so I cannot wait for a conventional publisher to find me and make me famous. So I decided to go the self-publishing way. I chose Notion Press, and the advantage of self-publishing is that you get more control over the process, the operation. So I learned a lot during this process. And to tell you about my education, I studied in Delhi College of Engineering. I did my bachelor's in civil engineering, followed that up with a master's in environmental engineering. Then I worked in HPCL, Hindustan Petroleum, the Chembur refinery for a couple of years, and that's where I met my future husband. We moved to Singapore for 13 years. We lived here, and then we moved to the US for about 4 years, and then I have moved back to Singapore now. And actually, in the past 17 years, I have been mainly writing about water. So I'm the editor of a magazine called Asian Water, which is a magazine on water, wastewater, water supply, wastewater treatment. And it is read by the professionals and the engineers in the Asian region. So that is what I've been doing for most part of my working life. But now I have have dived into history. I was actually always interested in history. If I go back and think, even in school, I was very keen to read all about ancient India. But of course, those were the days when I would believe everything that was in the textbook. So I believed in the Aryan invasion theory. I thought Aryans came to India, gave us Sanskrit, gave us horses, gave us basically whatever we are proud of. And then the British came and they gave us the modern education system. They gave us this the law and order. They gave us railways and such things. But I had a very good history teacher, Mr. K. Singh, who was an expert in medieval history, and he used to lend me a lot of his books on the rule of medieval sultans in India. So those books also intrigued me. I took them home and read all about Al-Tamash and Kutubuddin Aibak and all the Delhi sultans. So I learned a lot about the medieval rule, the medieval kings. And then, so life went on, and then later in life, I came across Dr. N.S. Rajaram, who was my mother's close childhood friend. So he introduced me to the works that he had co-authored with Dr. David Frawley. And those books simply shook me up, and I realized that a lot of things that I had studied in my textbooks was all wrong. I needed to revisit history. And that's how I started reading books by Dr. Subhash Garg, Dr. Nikhil Danino, Rajiv Malhotra, and so on. And the learning is still going on. But still, I never imagined that I would sit down and write a book on history. I thought that is something that you leave it to the PhDs to write about history. But there were two events that triggered me to start writing. The first was when I saw an article in New York Times which said that the problem of open defecation in India and the poor hygienic practices came from the ancient texts, Indian texts like Manusmriti and others. So that was the most preposterous remark I had ever heard, and I thought I must do something about it. And then, and we were in the US at that time, and then my daughter, she had this textbook. She was prescribed a textbook called World Civilizations, the Global Experience, something like that. World Civilizations, Global Experience, AP edition. And that had very little about India. And even in that very little, there was some horrendous ignorant remarks. And I remember one such statement. It said the Indian caste system is perhaps the most extreme form of social organization, which violates the most revered principles on which modern Western society is based. So then I said, what the hell is this? I mean, the modern Western society is all egalitarian, and then the Indian society is painted as some kind of ghastly system where there's where people are oppressing each other. Then these two events made me realize that I need to work, there's a lot of work to be done in correcting the narratives of Indic history. I also realized that we are all colonized in some way or the other. The way we look at ourselves, the way we look at our culture, our festivals, I realized that we were so colonized. And around this time, I also came into contact with some brilliant people in Houston. They were all members of Indic, Indian History Awareness and Research, so IHAR, and I met Dr. Raj Vedam, Dr. Subrato Gangopadhyay, Dr. Sharat Menon, Dr. Bharat Srinivasan. And I had a lot of exchanges with them, a lot of debates and discussions, which are still going on. I'm now a part of IHAR myself. And around the same time in 2014, my Facebook wall simply exploded with a lot of people joining in the discussions that I would start. And I got the feeling that there was a convergence towards finding out more about our past, digging out the narratives that had been hidden from us. So that's how it all it evolved. Today we are lucky that we have a computer through which we can access so many papers, so many books. The entire digital libraries are available for us. So I think we don't have any excuse to be ignorant today. And in this context, I must thank Indic Academy because they have made online library resources available to authors like me. I'm making good use of it. And they've also enabled the authors to learn, Indic authors to learn Sanskrit if they want to. So I availed of that as well. I joined an online Sanskrit course. So I think it's very important for us to learn Sanskrit because that would help you to understand our texts better, to know the real meanings. And today, a lot of my friends tell me, the ones who have gone deep into Sanskrit, that they are far more decolonized today than they were before. So one of the comments I get a lot from people is that, why are you studying history? Why do you need to, just read up about the glory of ancient India, or how it was destroyed by the marauders, the invaders, and how the British ruined it? Why do you want to just keep focusing on the negative in the past? Why don't you look at the future? You need to be focused on the future. So that perplexes me a lot, because the past, present, and the future, they are on a continuum. So whatever is happening today is the result of events that happened in the past. Whatever is going to happen tomorrow is going to be the result of what the events that are happening today and before that. So it's all in a continuum. It makes no sense to me to say that, okay, I'm not going to look at my past, I'm only going to look at the future. That makes me feel like it's like you're having amnesia. You're not self-aware. So in this, and there's a quote by Michael Crichton that appeals to me. So he said that if you don't know history, you don't know anything. You are like a leaf that doesn't know that it is part of a tree. I think this really applies to India. So unless we know what we have lost, we won't know what we have to rebuild and how we have to rebuild it. It's our past can be a motivating force to understand today's problems and know how to solve it. So we had a world-class education which produced from schooling to advanced levels, and it produced the best of craftsmen, engineers, grammarians. I come from a family of grammarians. We produced the best professionals in the world in the past, but look at today's discourse about our past. It's all about the caste system, about the oppression of women, about the sati system and such things. So I knew that this had to be changed, and I have done something about it. So when I published this book, there was a very poignant comment I got from Shilpa Nargund, and she wrote in Amazon that when she finished reading my book, she felt cheated out of a superior education system, and she wished that my book would help to rebuild that. In fact, that's exactly the feeling I got when I was researching, that here was this superior education system that we had, and we have been cheated out of it. So now I'm coming to the end of my talk. I just hope that you will buy my book, read it. I've kept it less than 100 pages so that even people, busy people, everyday working people can finish it in about 2 hours. And I hope my book will give you some data points, some talking points, some inspiration, some motivation to decolonize yourself and put yourself to the task of rebuilding India's spirit. So thank you for listening to me. And now I look at the questions that I've got. So the first question I have is, which is the first one? Where do I start from? Okay. The first question is, how do you think the educational system of India would have been today if there was no disruption in the form of Muslim invasions and civilization? Okay. To tell you the truth, this is something that I've pondered a lot about. So I think our temple universities would have, and the viharas would have evolved into modern universities. So if you know, in America, most of the famous universities today were actually funded by Christian bodies, by churches. So I think our temple universities would have evolved into modern universities with a good mix of humanities and science subjects. And I think we would have had more holistic and critical thinking as an essential part of our education if there had been no interference by the British. And I think environmental concerns would have been built into our subjects. I don't think there would have been a separate subject called environmental engineering or environmental sciences. or sustainability and such things, I think it would have all been part of every subject that was taught, whether it is chemistry or civil engineering. And I think if we had continued with our ancient system, then we would have been very strong in languages. So languages would have held as much importance as the sciences, because that's the way it used to be. And I think there would have been more literature in Indian languages that got stifled because of the British rule. And I think the local knowledge of arts, the sciences, the poetry, the indigenous technologies would have been captured by our education system. And given that there were so many foreign students coming to India, I think there would have been a good collaboration between different countries, the way we see in the US today. And I think there would have been more innovation and less of blind imitation. That's what would have happened if we had our own education system. What is the next question we have? Good to learn, Preksha Singhal, good to learn what all info is there in the books. Okay, thank you, Preksha. Then what else? What should be done from here? Are there universities currently in India that are trying to recover lost ground? Mr. Sridharan, that's a very good question. I know that there are a couple of universities, I can't recall their names, but yes, they are actually trying to bring about critical thinking. They are trying to make students take up projects, local projects, solve the problems of the people locally. And I know that IIT Kharagpur also is doing some good work, but I still feel that it's all very fragmented. We need to do a lot more. I think we need to completely overhaul our educational system. I think it's very important to prepare the students not just for a career, but for a life. That was the way our ancient systems were. So I think there has to be more collaboration between industry and the students and the professors. So I mean, there are many things to be done. If we make ourselves aware of our ancient education system, there are many things we can pick up from there. And I'm not saying that we should not take anything from the US American system or the UK system. By all means, we should take the best elements of them, but we should also be inspired by our ancient education system, because it was the best in the world at one time. So I don't see too many questions. Any more questions? It's going to be 30 minutes since I started. What is it? Religion has always been closely tied to ancient Indian education. That is where the problem really was. What are your thoughts? Oh, there was no problem there was no demarcation between religion and science, because religion would lead to science. Because I'm not talking about Abrahamic religions. So when you talk about Hinduism, you have to realize that there's a lot of science in it. If you go and read the ancient texts, if you read Rig Veda, you read Yajur Veda, you read all the the Upanishads, you'll see that our belief system was not divorced from science. In fact, it led to science. So yeah, so in fact, our religious system, if you can call it that, our open architecture religious system was very conducive to higher learning, advanced education, to answering questions about space, about the solar system, about the distance between the sun and the moon. And not to forget that our mathematicians were very obsessed with making perfect squares, and so when they would do the yajnas, they wanted everything to be perfect, all the shapes. And they also wanted to know the yajnas to be done at the correct time. So that's how the calendar and the time systems, and they all got perfected as a result of our religious practices. That was a good question. Thank you. Has the colonial education system led to our obsession with government jobs? Absolutely. I think the colonial education system, first of all, what they did was they carried out a big survey and slaughtered everybody into a caste. So they also criminalized a number of castes and put them in a lower category. So in a way, they kind of cast into stone a system which was very loose. Our Varna Jati Vyavastha was very loose. So the British made it very watertight. And then when the jobs were handed out to people, they would give it to the higher, the higher caste. So that's how, and then of course there was, so this British system continued when we got independence from them. So here I would blame the governments after independence also, because if they had the vision, they could have dismantled it and built a new system. But yes, they continued with the colonial system, and today also we see many remnants of that. And this obsession with government jobs. And government jobs were safe, where they didn't have to be innovative. No, I don't. So I think, yes, that is something that should have been changed. What can be done at individual level? Individual level, I would say, please educate yourself about your history and be empowered. Read. First of all, you should learn your own language. If you are a Maharashtrian, please learn Marathi. Learn to read Marathi books. If you are from Andhra or Telangana, please learn Telugu. Read Telugu books. So basically, be strong in your own languages and learn Sanskrit. Of course, Sanskrit. If you could learn Sanskrit and go deep into it, nothing like it, because there are so many books in Sanskrit which are still not translated. They are lying in museums. They are lying in libraries around the world. And I keep hearing about so many books which have not been translated, and most of us are unable to access them because we need English translations. So what you can do at an individual level is to be good in your language, in your Indian language, and then try to read, use the internet, use the resources you have. What are the challenges to implement indigenous education system at policy level? That's a good one. I'll just take it in a moment. Is there anything that I missed? Okay. The challenges are many. The challenges are inertia, because there is a certain set way of doing things and we just want to continue with it, because it's quite difficult to overhaul the textbooks. And then, of course, the mindsets, the colonized mindset, where, you want to imitate rather than taking a fresh look at everything. And there needs to be a master plan. You need to have a master plan for advanced education in all the states, and then follow that plan. There has to be excellence, like in Singapore, you see this culture of excellence, and then there has to be inclusion. Everybody has to be included in the education system, and by everybody, I mean even people later in life. It's like somebody like a woman of the 30 or 40 who suddenly who wants to get back to the education system. What is there for her to help her reach her full potential? So that there are many things to be done, there are challenges, but all these challenges can be overcome if we understand that there is a problem. If the government becomes aware that this needs to be changed, and then it has a dialogue with the people and then goes about it, instead of arbitrarily just introducing some features. So there has to be a master plan based on consultation with people, with the educated people. Most of the questions are coming from Sarita. The Greeks, Romans, and Western Europeans, to be precise, led the fields of geometry, arithmetic, astronomy. Where is the evidence that ancient Indians knew many of these things before them? We don't see too many written records from our ancients, but there is enough and more evidence from the ancient Europeans. Yes, that's true, because they have been, because they translated our works and they preserved it better than us. And we, that the Nalanda library was destroyed. So many of our libraries were destroyed. So we lost works that way. And then when the English education system came about, and then people could not read their own languages, then how could then those earlier books which were written simply got lost, and it's hard to find them anymore. They were sold off as some kind of rubbish. So this is the problem. But if we are able to access all those works and read them and understand them, we actually have plenty of evidence. In fact, Raj Vedam from IHAR himself has found all the astronomical evidence in our texts, which indicate the antiquity of our civilization and how we had made discoveries in astronomy. We knew so many things. We had made so many measurements, and we probably had even instruments to measure. So yeah, I mean, currently the Greeks, Romans, and Western Europeans have are considered to be the inventors, the first inventors. But as the archaeological excavations are going on, as more evidence is coming to light, I think all these things will be revised. So I think I've answered most of the questions I got. Is there anything else here? Any more questions, or I can close? Why doesn't government give importance to the ancient Indian education system now and include yoga, Ayurveda, scriptures? Well, I know that yoga is definitely a big part of the government's agenda. You have the International Yoga Day, so no complaints about that. But the thing is not just yoga as in exercises. We need to understand them, the spirituality, the adhyatmic significance of yoga. So that part is, I think we could do a lot more on that. Ayurveda also is quite being encouraged in India, but again, that the link with the past has to be revived. So not many people believe in Ayurveda. They would still prefer the Western education system because they think it is more advanced. And again, the surgical techniques and all those, the advancements in medicine that you see in the conventional system make people go to that rather than Ayurveda. So I think we need a lot of research here. One of the things we need is excellent research. We need to research on Ayurveda and see which aspect of it can be combined with modern education, modern medical systems, and how they can be used in a complementary way, in an integrated way. Where does one buy your book? Okay, that means you've joined late. You can get them on all the online book platforms, like book selling platforms, Amazon, Flipkart. So go to any of these websites and search for the book. You can see I've kept the book behind me as well, and or you search by my name, Sahana Singh, and you'll get it. You can buy it, buy even the Kindle edition if you like. After British colonization, whole world is following British or Western approach of economics. If we change our system according to Arthashastra, how can we deal with World Bank and other technologies like GDP? Yeah, I know there are challenges. I mean, you can't suddenly start using new terminologies, but you have to work towards it. You have to first of all understand the Arthashastra. How many of us even know what's in it? We just hear quotations from here and there. So it needs to be taught at the school level or university level. In fact, Arthashastra used to be taught in the schools. So once that happens and there's more discourse, it is there in the public discourse, then maybe even the international bodies, financial organizations also will start using those terms. Did not the British bring in the concept of territorial integrity and the concept of a nation back than India as an idea? No, I don't agree. I believe that the concept of India was already there. Megasthenes has referred to it, and most of the people outside in the outside India referred to India with the limits of Himalayas at the top, the Indian Ocean below, and the various other boundaries, the boundaries of sea all the way along the west. So yeah, and even Shankaracharya, when he set up his mathas, he went to the four corners of India. So the concept of India, Bharatvarsha, was definitely there. Yes, but the British made a unified system of law and order. Maybe we can give them the credit for that. But then the British destroyed everything by taxing us, by just bleeding us, completely impoverishing us. So I don't know whether you need to give them any credit for anything that they did, because they basically sucked us dry and used everything we had for the benefit of Britain. Any more questions? When can we see you in an NDTV debate with Bipin Chandra? That will be the day. I'll be very happy to do that. Uh, is Bipin Chandra? So I mean, I would be happy that you. It depends on how many people. Just a minute, Mike. How many of you buy my books, read my books, and bring me to a level where I'll be invited to an NDTV debate? I think I've exhausted, I've answered all the questions. I think I have answered almost all your. So Sharvari Kulkarni writes, I want to read more about ancient education. Can you please guide me to take the study further? Yes, sure. Offline, you can please get in touch with me. I'll suggest books. You can, and also if you buy my book, there are many references given at the back. That should be a pointer. When is your book launch? Well, my book launch was supposed to be in Houston last month, but because of Hurricane Harvey, it got postponed. So it'll probably be in December or so in the UK. But in Singapore, I'm going to have it on October 4th. Dr. Makarand Paranjape has kindly agreed to launch it. And in fact, the next Indic chat next week at the same time is going to be Dr. Makarand Paranjape's chat. So please tune in for that as well. Okay, then I think I've answered all the questions. Thank you everybody for joining in, and please leave your comments. I can still read them. Please buy my book, and don't forget to listen to Dr. Makarand Paranjape next week. Namaste again.